Well, g'day. It's Scotty North here, and this is Xenium.Live, where we talk all things money, finance, and property. And actually, it is the last Xenium Live, not ever, but just for 2020. So, yes, we're getting into a bit of the Christmas season stuff. I've got a nice hat on, which, if you are listening on our Xenium.Live podcast, and thanks for listening, is a Santa hat. And for those that are watching, are probably quite thankful that my head is actually covered with something that is remotely more attractive than the normal baldness that is thereon. All right. Well, today's show, we're going to recap some of the highlights from the year and give you some good tips coming into the Christmas time and prepare for January next year. And just, it's a bit cruisy, so if you've got some comments, jump on, ask some questions. It's a bit of a Q&A and a bit of whatever you want it to be. But we're going to fill some good gaps in the year and end it on a high note. And to join me on that, on today's show, I have the one and the only PJ Patterson. PJ, how you going?
I'm really well, Scotty. I'm here today, hopefully, to spread a little bit of Christmas cheer and to set us up for the other hand, 2021. Let's go, 2021. Can't wait for you to get here.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's start with that topic. So, I guess we went into 2020 just expecting another year, but in reality, that's not kind of what went on, right?
Not at all. We started the year, of course, with the severe bushfire season. We then had some flooding, and then, of course, we had the old COVID come along and really derail everything globally. It was a total disaster economically from, say, March through to September of this year. Not much happened around the world except people stayed at home, and we really ramped up the digital economy, I guess, would be the only, I think, positive consequence that came out of this year was the fact that a lot of people realized and a lot of employers realized that they could actually have their teams working remotely and from home, and their businesses didn't stop completely, and the world economy sort of kept grinding along, but obviously very much handicapped. Then coming into the second half, or maybe even the final quarter of this year, we had unprecedented stimulus and government monies being thrown around, and of course, interest rate policy being cut to generational lows. And the resurgence of the economy began to really take hold in sort of September, October period. And now I think we are on the back of that. We're riding a nice wave into 2021, which will continue globally, I might add, easily until June, July of next year. So I've got some very, very positive things to say about 2021, and I think we're going to have a cracking year.
Look, that's a pretty good analysis of the year in a succinct way from a money and finance perspective. So I'm going to give a property one. So we finished 19. It was a bit slow in Sydney, Melbourne. Didn't know what was going on. And then 2020 hit, was a bit more of the same. However, there's a bit of, like, oh, this year could be better. And then Corona came, right? So Corona hit and it was going to be carnage. And the banks come out and they said, we're going to see 15% drops in property prices and this and that. And it's the end of the world, right? And so then, as PJ said, the stimulus happened, other bits and pieces. By the time we're past July and we're getting into August, the general markets in property are saying, "Oh, okay, well, we haven't imploded. What's going on?" In fact, quite the opposite was happening because there was a massive home owner stimulus, which was to do with new property, and I've right through to just last month when Ray White, as an organisation, did $6.68 billion of transactions for the month. That is by far their largest month ever, and that equates to roughly about 167 million in commissions for the month. So real estate agents have had a good year if others haven't, and we're coming into 2021 with a very bright outlook for property. If you can get a rental, because that was the other thing that happened at the end of the year, rentals disappeared. And there's poor people that are having a lot of trouble finding rental property, and it's a bit of a mixed bag in that behalf. So what an absolutely crazy year, PJ.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. A crazy year that many of us are certainly going to be very happy to see the back of. And I think it's good that you gave a bit of a property market update there as well, because of course a lot of people, I think, at the moment would be um, of the belief anyway that because we have unprecedentedly low interest rates, that the property market will continue to do very well. But not so fast on the interest rates, though. One of the things, and I can run through a few of them that will be on the lookout for next year. One of the things that we're going to be looking out for is actually, believe it or not, rising interest rates, because we're going to really start to see a lot of inflation coming into the market next year. So when I say the market, I mean just inflation broadly is going to be something to keep an eye on next year. We're already seeing that across the board in terms of commodity prices. Iron ore, I know, is getting back up to the levels that it was previously. We're selling a heck of a lot more of it now to China and various places, so that's a good sign for the global economy. We're selling a lot of other basic materials, copper and zinc and nickel and things of that nature from Australia. So we're probably going to see a good resurgence in the mining sector. Obviously, as you touched on, the property sector will be one of those, and hopefully in Australia anyway, and probably around the world, we'll see a resurgence in retail, travel, leisure, just because people can move around now. So hopefully next year is going to really be a return to some sort of normalcy. And one of the big drivers of that will be, I guess, sometime over the next few weeks or maybe month, we're going to hear about the COVID vaccine being rolled out. And obviously we'll have to see what the true impact of that is, because I don't think they can physically make enough vaccine doses to cover the whole world, but they're certainly going to begin rolling that out. And that should also give a boost to confidence and, of course, to financial markets as well. So, again, lots and lots and lots of positive things.
All right. So, PJ, give us a 90-second rundown of what happens over the next 4 weeks in financial markets, and then I'll tell people about the property markets.
Sure. So obviously over this period of time, because the financial markets are focused on the Northern Hemisphere, there's a lot of holidays that are interspersed in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And let's face it, a lot of people do take time off to be with their families. So on financial markets broadly, you're going to see lower volumes, a lot less activity. We shouldn't see, any big movements one way or the other, up or down. Should sort of just be business as usual with more relaxed trading and lower volumes and things like that. So I can't really see that there's going to be any big things coming up. Obviously, financial year end in North America is December 31, so you'll often see tax loss selling and some things of that nature take place. So sometimes you might see a small decline in markets, but then usually you kick into the new year. Fund managers and other big money managers like to get themselves positioned early in the new year after the tax loss selling. So you then see a bit of a lift in markets. So again, probably nothing too major happening in financial markets, barring any major shock, which I don't think there's any coming. And then again, tax loss selling, and then off we go into the new year.
Yeah, that's good. And so for property, it's virtually a big shutdown, especially in new investment property. Builders, look, if you can still get a builder now, you're doing well. Definitely by tomorrow, they disappear, or not answer their phones, right? So the week before Christmas is always a hard slog. Generally speaking, builders are away till at least the second week. Even if they're going back to work on some sites, they're not really taking many calls. Not much is happening in those sort of tradie side of things. Solicitors and accountants are similar. Solicitors definitely are off from this week, or right before Christmas, and they're usually off for that 10 to 14 days. And accountants can be usually quite longer. Don't try and contact an accountant in January. They're either on the beach or at the golf course. That's normally where those guys spend their time, because that's about the only time they get off during the year. And real estate agents say they work all the time, but if you try and contact someone between Christmas and New Year, it's a bit of a hit and miss. So see how you go. So in general, this time is a big shutdown for property, especially the investment side, and everyone is rushing to do building pest inspections and get settlements done before everyone closes for the time. So, mate, it is a bit of a slow time for us in the property space.
Of course. And one thing I might just mention for those of you who, like myself, who didn't get an opportunity to take a holiday this year anywhere really, except my backyard, is that the U.S. dollar is weakening, and the upside down of that, of course, is every other major currency, and of course that means the Aussie dollar is going to be strengthening. So, with hopefully next year, we're going to see more flights being put on, more countries opening up, more international travel taking place, and certainly domestic travel opening up again. But if you're thinking about taking an overseas holiday early next year, certainly your spending power and your purchasing power in terms of the Aussie dollar will be increasing. So that's also something I didn't mention earlier. That'll be a big benefit for those of you who are hanging out to go on a holiday overseas.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, right? I mean, and it's not just a little bit of movement. There's been substantial movement in the US dollar, and it's going to have a big flow-on effect. Maybe not quite in time for online Christmas shopping, but perhaps Boxing Day sales.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I think, the retailers, the Black Friday and what are they calling them now? Cyber Monday. And then I think every day of the week now they have a special sale that kicks off from starting Black Friday. But anyway, we've seen a huge increase in the volume of online sales activity. So I think Amazon and some of the other major online retailers are seeing unprecedented amounts of traffic on their websites. Obviously, with retail shops, many of them still being short-staffed or closed. I haven't been to the mall myself in weeks, so I really don't know what the activity levels are like there. I suspect they're still down a little bit, but I think, broadly speaking, we're going to see those increasing through the holiday period and hopefully, again, a return to normalcy. So let's hope that, we see a lot more activity economically out there in the next couple of weeks and months.
Yeah, look, that's a good point. When I've been out and about doing my Christmas shopping, which is, it's not the 24th of December, so I'm not actually finished Christmas shopping, but it's been pretty busy in my area. Like it always is busy at Christmas. It's hard to tell if it's the same or more, but I know the roads have been pretty busy and what have you. So, and it was interesting. I was in Melbourne yesterday. Had to fly down for the day, and it was interesting talking to people down there in relation to how what they're finding in their area. I was talking to the driver. He'd been slow for the year, but it's starting to pick up. The city was still really quiet, but there was business sort of happening. So it's things are slowly coming back to normal. And the plane both way was very full, mate. There was not a spare seat from Brisbane to Melbourne, and I know there was a bunch of people lined up for the Sydney flights as well. So those are the things that we're starting to see in our country again. Mate, changing the topic. Here we go. Look at this, the last shows. We've got Steve Skeen, the serial commenter's coming on, and he reckons it's busy at Bunnings. So Steve's obviously finished for the year, everyone. And he's at Bunnings. So he's doing one of his little projects that he loves doing on the weekends. So if you want to find Steve Skeen anywhere in Queensland, try his Bunnings in his local area, I'd say, at the moment. So g'day, Steve from Bunnings. So PJ, I'm going to share our screen here. And for those that are listening, we'll just have to describe it. We'll go in, and here we go. We did this up for the last show for this year, and I started putting all the headers that we'd put together for the show over the year. And mate, I had to resize them about 4 times because I kept adding more and more. And I didn't know we had so many. There's a whole bunch on there, and then I started adding all the people in. I've gone, man, this has actually been a really big year. I didn't realize it was so big. When we started Xenium, Xenium wasn't live. We had done some webinars from July last year in 2019, and we went to the live shows this year. Mate, I didn't realize we'd done so many. It's a huge number there. We got some your face appears a lot of times, mate. Let's see if I can make this.
I can see that. I am on there quite a bit. That's good. I tell you what, that just goes to show you that once you get into a good habit of producing a show and all the content that you do get through a lot, and that's really good to see so many topics there that were pertinent at the time, and probably some of them still are. So yeah, it's good, mate.
Look at that. We got a few financial market updates for you. We got The King is Dead. A couple of the US shows are in there. We got the gold one. That was a good one, mate. There's a lot of people interested in that show. We had a lot of views on that show. The federal budget. Oh, yes, it's always fun, mate, talking about trying to make something super boring, at least remotely interesting. Let's talk about the federal budget. And then here we go. We got the Biden versus Trump we talked about.
Yeah.
What about all the guests? I mean, you would have watched some of the guests as well. We got Rob. There's Karen was on there with Rachel and Renee. There's Nathan, Jason, there's Steve there, Steve down the bottom, Todd, George. There's a bunch of people on there, and Terry Ryder, you guys at the
Terry,
top
yeah,
there.
don't forget Terry.
Terry, I got to make a mention to Terry. He always cops it on my openings, poor Terry, and I always open the show with Terry. He never knows what to say. He says he's not often lost for words, except when he comes on Xenium.Live, poor fella. So I might have to send him like a box of chocolates or something to say, hey, sorry about that.
Yeah,
But,
that's
mate, what
funny.
a
I don't know
big
how he can be
year.
lost for words, mate. He's a property guy. Just talk about, pick a location and talk about it. That's funny.
Mate, I think I have that effect on people. I don't think it's very positive, but it is what it is. So there's a lot of content there, PJ. I mean, there's a lot of shows, 30 minutes each or more. And anyone can view them in our vault or on our YouTube channel on Xenium. So we've got that links in the podcast as well. That wherever you see this show. So, mate, there's a lot of stuff there, and looking forward to next year as well when we come back to do even more. Mate, are you back around next year?
Of course, yeah. I'll be back around 6th of Jan, but I'll probably hopefully have a little bit of a break or some sort of holiday in the middle there somewhere after all the Christmas and New Year stuff dies down, and then we'll see. I am hoping though to just take 2 weeks or so off here between Christmas and that January 6th or 7th period and do nothing. I feel mentally, I don't know about you guys and people listening to this, and watching it, but mentally I am exhausted. I don't physically feel exhausted because I haven't gone anywhere and done anything this year, but just the mental side of it this year has been, a real challenge. It's been a great year from that in that perspective, but man, my brain is just like, dude, I need some time. I just want to sleep.
Yeah. Look, and I think I'm talking to a lot of people the same thing. I mean, I think I mentioned to you or someone else earlier this week that it almost feels like it's 2 years in one. There was this first year where we dealt with the corona and all this sort of stuff, and then we tried to fit a year's worth of work in the last 4 months of the year, and it's just been absolutely crazy. So, you're not the first person to say it's time for rest, and that could be a really good thing this Christmas.
Definitely
rest and
will be a good
see
thing.
friends and family and chill out.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only true disappointment I have this year is that my family, normally my brother comes out from the U.S. Every year around Christmas time, and he's just unable to travel this year for obvious reasons. And so that's going to be a bit of a bummer, but because he's always a good time when he comes out to visit. But I'm sure we'll catch up sometime in the new year. Anyway, and please, to everybody out there, do take time off and make sure that you recharge the batteries. It's so important.
Take it easy. Yeah, and Steve's seconding your comments there. He's saying, yes, it's a tough year. We all need a nap. Well, Steve, you need a nap because you just walked around Bunnings for the last, 3 hours. So I don't know why Steve needs a nap. He's at Bunnings. Anyway, and we've got someone else stopping in. I don't know who it is. It's just saying Facebook user, Santa, what's my present this year? I'm not sure that I am equipped to answer that, but if you'd like to know anything about property cycles, feel free to ask questions about that one. But
I'll tell you one thing I could probably comment on that might have people interested at the moment, of course, because we do talk a lot here about financial markets and the dollar and stocks and things like that. Occasionally, I'll give a mention to the cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin of late has been on an absolute tear. And it looks like it is going to resume or hit its old all-time high. Actually, I think it exceeded it today, come to think of it. I think its previous all-time high was around $19,000-something per coin, and it's gone just above that overnight, I believe, 21,000, somewhere in that vicinity. And it's in a bull market at the moment, as the U.S. dollar is in a bear market. And as I mentioned earlier, the U.S. dollar will continue to fall, which for those of you who like the old cryptos, particularly the Bitcoins, they will probably continue to ramp higher. So I might suggest that you wait for a pullback, though. You always get those in the coin price, and then buy some. But that might be your stocking stuffer there, Facebook user, for the new year. Is keep an eye on the crypto.
If we'd bought Bitcoin at like 5 cents or something, mate, you'd be laughing, right? So,
well, of course you would. If you bought anything when it first came out, man, if you could get in a time capsule and go back and buy, Microsoft or Apple or Tesla or any of those, right? Facebook, Amazon, you'd be a billionaire. But I guess that's a good lesson, and an interesting thing you bring up is that there are often opportunities that people overlook. And not that I'm a long-term investor anymore. I very much am a cycle person. And so, all of those stocks I just mentioned over the years, if you were following the cycle, you would have been a buyer or seller of those things at any, one particular moment in time. The idea being, of course, that you time the market, which is possible, by the way, to ride the waves of certain asset classes higher and then get out of those things when the economic conditions change. And I suppose to just wrap up the financial market idea for next year, we're going to see just absolutely pretty much every market on the planet going up in the first 6 months of next year. And that's because we've got this massive reflation trade going on. And so you'll almost be able to throw a dart at the I was going to say the financial section of the paper. Don't really have that anymore. Everything's digital these days, but you can almost throw a dart at the stock market and pick a stock and probably make money next year. Now, obviously, there'll be better places than others to have your cash if you're a stock market investor, but certainly it's one of those markets where Captain Stock Picker thinks they're a genius. And, I'll have something to say about that probably in June of next year, because I think it'll be time to start tapping the brakes. But that's a lot of shows and a lot of time between now and then, Scotty.
Yeah. Well, look, mate, being a property guy, we don't come back till after Easter, because that's just, we take at least a quarter of a year off. So, no, I think we always bring our shows back probably February, except this year we didn't because, it was such just an evolving activity time. We've come back in March, but this year we're looking to come back in February and kick off our Xenium.Live and Xenium Pro shows again then. So we'll definitely back up.
That'll be a good time. I think that'll be a good time because, of course, we'll have the presidential inauguration on, I think, the 20th of Jan or thereabouts. So Biden will be sworn in as the 40.
Are you sure? I thought Trump was going into that one, mate. I thought Trump said he was going in on that one.
I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens. I mean, you never know. There could be a coup in the U.S. between now and then, but something tells me that won't happen. But nevertheless, I think Joe Biden will be sitting in the White House in January. And, of course, Congress at the moment, U.S. Congress, that is trying to pass a stimulus bill. And they're still, toing and froing over various things. $1 billion here, $1 billion there. I mean, what's $1 billion these days anymore when you're talking about $1 trillion stimulus package? But nevertheless, all of these things are going to line up again next year to just put a fire or light a rocket booster under financial markets, and I dare say probably property markets as well. So, I would, if I were everyone, I would shake off the funk that was 2020. It was a horrendous year, and embrace what is going to be really a great 2021, at least the first probably half to three quarters of the year, and then we'll talk. We'll talk about the back half of next year and see what that looks like when the time comes.
Well, look, I think that that's a really good summation of the year. I mean, our first show back, we had Troy and Zara Love on, and they're professional speakers, and they do a lot with corporate coaching, other bits and pieces, and they had some great tips on just how to get through that time. We came back in the middle of the Corona time, and it was just no one knew what was going on. It was all uncertain, and that was our first show, and our last show of the year. We've got you talking about, the markets are just booming. Bitcoin has today hit its highest rate ever. Property has completely come through Corona, unless you're talking about directly in Melbourne and perhaps a little bit in Sydney. In general, across Australia, up from the start of the year. I mean, there is no way in our first show that we would have picked that this is what we'd be talking about in our last show. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just goes to show you that anything can happen. Even though I've set up the next year, 2021, quite nicely. Of course, anything can and potentially will happen. But right at the moment, other than some skirmishes and things going on around the world, it seems like everybody is kind of getting along. Maybe not Donald Trump and the Electoral College, but everybody else around the world seems to be getting along. And I think, broadly speaking, everyone is just ready to say sayonara to 2020 and get into 2021. Start the new decade. Just incidentally, I don't know if you knew this or not, but 2020 is the last year of the last decade. So 2021 is the
Yes.
first year of the new decade. I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, well, that was the big argument back at the millennial turnover, right? There's a whole bunch of people saying, no, it's the wrong year. We've got
Yeah,
to do it, this time or this time, and it's like, you know what? I think we're just celebrating a number. Let's forget
yeah,
about it. So
exactly.
yeah, it is what it is.
It
So
is
all
what it
right, well,
is.
look, I think that's a pretty good wrap. I mean, what a great way to end, a bunch of shows for the year. We've been a bit like a pulse up and down over the year. But towards the end of the year, then it was that ride upwards. And mate, I think we're leaving on a bit of a high, and I'm quite happy about that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we are. I mean, again, as we've been commenting in the last few weeks and couple of months on these shows with the economic updates, things have just been slowly but steadily improving. And so, yes, I think we're coming into this time of year with a lot of cylinders firing, and I think the confidence and the general mood out there is good. I think businesses probably are still a little bit cautious because they've just come through a horrendous period, and there's probably a few things that'll still get wrung out once we get back to full normalcy. When we truly see once mortgages are fully reset and back to normal, and businesses are back to trading again and off any sort of special arrangements with their lenders. We'll see if there's any other little unintended consequences out there. But I think the support from the government will be there for that sort of stuff, and it'll be swift, and I think it'll be decisive as well. So I can't really see again that we're gonna have a relapse back into the COVID economic conditions. I think we're well and truly beyond that now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Look, we've got a couple of comments and questions that have come through, but there's got quite a few there. I've got to just grab one before we leave. We've got, are lithium stocks good to invest in for 2021? We referring to the stuff in batteries, or are we talking about the stuff that people inject to help their mental stability?
I'd say they're talking. This is an electric vehicle play, so certainly small caps, which most lithium producers would be classified in that small cap space, will probably do well. And we're continuing to see the electric vehicle and obviously the battery play evolve as more players get involved in the electric vehicle market. I think Ford just rolled out their new Mustang electric vehicle Mustang version. There's a few other players out there. I'd just be very cautious about selecting individual stocks and maybe try to find an ETF or something that'll give you a bit of diversification in that space, because mining is a very, very tough game, whether it's lithium or gold or copper or any of those things. But broadly speaking, lithium could be something certainly you could have a small allocation to in your portfolio. But again, I would be cautious about that. Maybe a maximum position size might be 2 to 3% of your investable capital in any one stock, and maybe up to 6% in an ETF. And there are a couple of good ETFs out there for the whole electric vehicle and just generally the alternative energy plays. So definitely something to look at. I wouldn't say no.
All right. Wouldn't say no. All right. Okay. Well, that's it. That is the last show of the year, PJ. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a bit of a ride of a year.
Pleasure. My pleasure. One other quick, I got 35 seconds left. One other quick tip. Keep an eye on cannabis and marijuana stocks. Those are going to be absolutely ripping as well in the new year.
All right. Well, is
Not
that
that I'm a
why
user
you're
of
having
the
a
stuff,
couple?
but
I was going to say that's why you got a couple of weeks off, right? Are you tending to your stocks?
I'm not talking my own book on that one, mate. I'm just saying.
Right, rightio. All right. Well, on that note, we will leave PJ to go tend his garden, and for you guys that are watching and listening to us on Xenium.Live podcast, thank you very much. You've made it a fantastic year this year. And as I showed before, there's been a bunch of shows, way more than I can remember doing. But obviously, I had done them because, well, my picture's on the logos as well. And so, looking back, it's been really, really, really quite an amazing ride. What a 2020! Let's hope for a better 21. Now, practical stuff. If you want to know anything more about any of the topics we talked about today, you can hit us up on hello@Xenium.Live. That's HELLO the little @ symbol, Xenium.Live, and no .coms, no .aus. And of course, you can jump on our website. It's been scrolling at the bottom of the screen, which is Xenium.Live, no .coms, not .aus. And you can call us 1300 66 789. And before we go, we got Steve Skeen. Merry Christmas to you, Steve. Hope that you get out of Bunnings after your nap on one of the lounges there. And I think this is my Greek mate, Michael. Thanks, awesome, love it. Thanks, yep, mate. He's always full of love, young Michael. So there we go. All right. If you got any comments or questions, you can hit us up on those details below. I'm Scotty North. This is the final show where we talk all things money, finance, and property, and we talk about them on Xenium Live.